Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a nice sunny edition of Morning Coffee Review. I'm Jason Hartley, joined as always with Michael Achabe here, and we're going to talk about not a whole lot of Bluebeam today.
No.
Normally, we would talk about a lot of Bluebeam, and we might talk about a little Bluebeam. We'll see what happens. But we're going to talk about model coordination in Autodesk Construction Cloud today. A little different than
Yes.
what we've normally done, but as always, just because we say this is what we're going to do, within the hour, we could go down all these different rabbit holes. So we'll see where we end up. But as always, how's it going today, Michael?
Good. Excited. I totally spaced this and didn't talk to Matt about it, so it'll be myself. Matt and I did this presentation and examples over at Autodesk University, but I've done this a couple of times back out of Autodesk University and talking with clients about it, specifically around model coordination, right? A lot of folks are traditionally using Navisworks. I don't know what's going on. Hold on.
Navisworks. They're using Navisworks or they're using different things. So as Michael's recovering, I want to start today with a little bit of why. Sometimes we talk about trends here on MCR, and this is a big one. We heard this coming from multiple places. So think about the history of the construction document, right? Contractors, engineers, architects were fairly siloed. We'd do our plans, we'd send it to them, they would look at it, roll them out, figure out what to do, and then it'd go back and forth. And the contractor at the end of it would finally get involved and then be like, cool, we're just going to build it. Well, they start building it and, well, that doesn't line up. This doesn't, what's going on over here? That says, hold up, RFI time, right? Do the RFI. What is this about? Right now, we're seeing a bigger connection between design and the make side, contractor side, than ever before. We're starting to finally question, is this even constructible? Right? I can come up with some weird idea, put it on paper. That doesn't mean it can actually be built. So this coordination is helping to enable this, and it's allowing that better communication between the people who are building it and the people who are designing it. Right? I can go upstairs and use my 3D printer, right? I can design something in Fusion. I can plug it into the 3D printer. Doesn't mean the 3D printer can actually get it done, right? There's that mediator with this software that tells you, hey, you're going to need to do this and this and this and this. And that's sort of where we're going with everything that we're building. The contractors, the building people are getting more involved to make sure it is constructible, not even talking about the value engineering and should you build it. It's more about, can this be built? And that's where this coordination is coming from. So I'm prefacing today by, if you're not thinking about this, it's time. Just rip that Band-Aid right off and start thinking about, if you're not doing any sort of coordination or you're not doing it to the level that Michael's going to show you, buckle up. We're going for a good one.
Yeah, so basically there are other solutions out there, and like Jason was alluding to, we're seeing a blend between the pre-con side and the design side, and making sure coordination happens prior to construction phase, more readily and available, right? Because right now there's a lot of builds that are happening that are having coordination redesign models for FM turnover to owners, right? The real need is also prior to construction to make sure we are coordinating properly. I see a lot of coordination just from the MEP side into a lot of the structural elements. And it could be, worried about some type of lightweight steel studs that we're doing, right? So placement of those, any penetrations for any locations for those as well. So just coordination in general. And this can be even to the design side, because that's what we've done. But from the actual going to that pre-con side prior to it happening in the field. But before we get started, any announcements, Jason? Do you know any from Bluebeam?
Not today. I don't think so. I think we're good. So last time we talked about Bluebeam Unbound. We talked about some of those things. So if you've got questions about that, you can go to last week's episode or just drop us a line or put it in LinkedIn chat.
Yes, perfect. So what we'll be talking about today is the Autodesk platform, which is called Autodesk Construction Cloud. So basically, if we all didn't know what Autodesk Construction Cloud is, it's a platform. So when you go and look at a project, the overall platform is called Autodesk Construction Cloud, formerly known as BIM 360. For those folks that haven't moved to Autodesk Construction Cloud, again, that's just the platforms. Think of that as the overarching area name of what's part of it. So essentially, in the platform itself, you have access to different modules, depending on your projects. This, I guess I could have gone into, let me go into a different one that has more, so then you can see them. Basically, you have different modules accessible for different projects, right? You have docs, which, by the way, it's going to be the cornerstone for everything in the Autodesk ecosystem for automation. So in order for AI to happen, which are learning models, right? Artificial intelligence has to learn off data. And if everyone has data siloed, what does that mean, Jason?
It means we're not coordinating very well.
Yes. So if your data is siloed, essentially there's no AI models that can learn off of it, right? That's why everything should be stored into docs. If you want to get any type of automation or any type of AI innovation from Autodesk, there needs to be a platform that their learning models can digest information from. So docs will be that new hierarchy, you know, the base platform. Yeah. Starts there. And then from that point on, right, you don't have to use these other modules, but we'll be talking specifically today about model coordination. There's also design collaboration that's required for using work sharing in Revit in Autodesk Construction Cloud. Also to store Civil 3D files. Jason may know a little bit about that. And then you have takeoff, build, cost management is included with build. So it's super weird, I know, that they don't just tuck cost management into build, but build gives you cost management. It's confusing, but you have to pay for takeoff. I know all this is confusing, so it's always good to go through a conversation about it. Essentially, you get docs, right? So if you have an AEC collection, you have access to docs when you're invited to a project. Another caveat. I just want to make sure this is all clear as people are going through this, as we go through model coordination. What do these different license types mean? So in order to access the platform, which is Construction Cloud, you have to have a base license. It's not free to play like Studio Session is, which you could still do like some collaboration, I guess, with overlay of PDFs, but it's 2D. It's not really seeing any clashes. You can't do any integration into like your design software, those types of things. But basically, again, Docs is a base license to get access to the storage platform. But if you just have Docs and no one at your company has set up a hub, and the only way to set up a hub is different license types. So Docs is included. So if someone at least set up a hub, you'd be able to access storage. If not, if you had Docs through your AEC collection, you could be invited to a project from a different client, right, to coordinate and collaborate. Now, there's another tier. You could just buy Docs by itself too, by the way, but it's included in your AEC collection. BIM Collaborate. BIM Collaborate is meant for folks that are PMing a project, an owner maybe, someone that's not actively working in Revit, but wants to do the things I'm about to do in ACC, right? Because it's cheaper than the Pro license. Pro, every single designer needs to have Pro. Pretty simple there because it allows for collaboration in Revit. So if you're a Revit user and you're working in Essential Model, then you need to have Pro. For those folks that are like, I don't know, Michael's talking about, I never used Revit before. You can actually work simultaneously in a project, just like you can in Sessions, marking up a PDF in Revit, which is the design software. That was actually pretty, the irony in that, like Studio Sessions is the same live collaboration with internal people in Revit.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, you've already tied Bluebeam back into the conversation, but yeah, it's different tools for the job, but still the methodology is similar, right?
Okay.
One analogy before, just because I got to get it out, you know, sometimes it is what it is. I always use the analogy that Autodesk Construction Cloud is like an old cable package for TV, right? Remember when you had cable? back in the day before you had all the streaming services that you probably aren't fully
Yeah.
utilizing.
Cable
But you
was
have your
expensive for no reason.
yeah, you have your basic cable, and then you want sports, add on the sports channel. Oh, you want the movie channels? You got to add on the movie channels.
Yeah, it was
That's
like
kind of
HBO
how
came with it
yeah,
and stuff. Yeah.
that's kind of how ACC works. Like you have the basic cable, you can get your local stuff and your game shows. But if you want the extras, you got to add it on. And you might not ever watch movies. You might not ever do design coordination, but you're still building stuff, right? This allows you to pick and choose what's best for your team because these licenses do get assigned per user, right? So you have a different use type and it works pretty slick as Michael's going to show you.
Yeah, I guess I probably should have done a preface of this of like, hey, I'm not going to show you how to set up a project and enable design collaboration. This is just model coordination enabled, and then talking about the different abilities within it. So just be aware, I'm not going to go step by step. And by all means, if everyone likes this and they want to go step by step, we can. That's what MCR is all about, is for you all. So let's just show an overview this time, and then you can all request if you want to have some step-by-steps within Autodesk Construction Cloud ecosystem, because that's what we're here to do. But okay, basically what model coordination does is allows you to run coordination between different views, which are published as models in Autodesk Construction Cloud. So essentially, when you're in here in Docs, this is where your files live. Again, coming back full circle. In here, you're storing your files. And then in the files themselves, they're being published as views. So if you've never seen Autodesk Construction Cloud, you can go through and look at the different files here. And in the files themselves, they're published as views here. Well, models, I guess you would say. And in the model themselves, you can look at these. So this is what Docs is. We're not looking at coordination yet. So you have the ability to bring up data from an actual project that's being stored in Docs, right? So yeah, key takeaway, Revit view equals ACC model.
Oh,
Matt,
okay.
Matt kept highlighting this all the time when we were talking at AU is perfect, because that's what it is, right? When you're publishing a view in Revit, it's pushing out a model essentially in ACC. Okay. So going back to model coordination, I can go and look at the models. From here, these are all of the, I guess it doesn't want to publish out, but basically these are all of the models or views from each model that have been published into ACC. Now, if I go to views here, these are segmented views that I can push into Docs if I wanted. But mainly what we're going to talk about today is an overview of clashes. So when you coordinate between two different files, which would be views published as models, you have this overview of what these look like. But the great thing about this, instead of just looking back in Docs where you can see different models overlaid on another one, this will actually highlight different clash issues between those models. Now, I know for those folks that have used Navisworks before, you can set up rules and exclusions so you don't have to worry about someone modeling things twice, right? Maybe the structural team models walls and so does the architectural team, and now we're going to have an indication of a clash there that we don't want to have to go through and disclose and say it's not a clash here, right? There are the ability and there is the ability to create object exclusions now. From here, again, you can create an exclusion. You're saying what model do you want to exclude elements from, right? So you get to pick if you're saying maybe the structural one has architectural based walls in there, and then we want to run the clash specifically on the architectural walls. You have that ability to go through and do that and add some rules here to remove them, right? So you don't see them from that perspective of the structure and architecture not aligning, which would indicate a clash. Are you watching the chat, Mr. Jason?
Yep.
Yep. So from here now, what we can go through and do is we can go through and look at these different views. So we talked about exclusion. We can see when these things are published. Now what I can go through and do is select, because there's different spaces essentially when you're creating this. Again, we're not going in depth. If you want us to go in depth, we can. Just ask questions as I'm going through more of an overview of this. But essentially you're creating a space to coordinate different views against one another. So in this example, Matt was the architect, over here, structural designer. And what we can go through and do is we can look at the different clashes between these two different views published as models. And I'm going to refer them as models now because we all understand that. The architectural models here, the structural models here. You could even go through and say, actually, I just want to look at those two different ones. You don't have to look at every single file that's been published into here. But right now you can see the indication that there is 196 clashes happening between these two models. So what I can do is I can click this open. And this does colorize them in a contrast, just like overlay and Bluebeam does. We're giving a different contrast between the two different views automatically. So this is just natively happening in our clash view versus in an actual model view. Like if I go back to docs and look at a different file, this doesn't give us a comparison automatically between two different models. It gives us a comparison between the model itself if we wanted to compare different iterations of it. You don't get that natively in docs. In model coordination, you have this happening, and then you have a list that pops out here to see where some clashes are currently being indicated.
So there's a question. The general contractor uses Navisworks and Sharepoint for all the files. How can they use model coordination in ACC?
So you can use different file types to run coordination off of in here. So to answer your question, you can load, because I asked Kyle that same thing. It's a typical file storage that you can run and publish information to, and you can just run it off those views. So it doesn't specifically need to be in Revit. Let me confirm that right now. Because I asked Kyle that same thing, and he's like, yeah, if you look up, it tells you what it has. And I'm like, okay, so let's see.
Yeah, because ACC as a platform can handle like 85 different file types. And since Autodesk puts out the NWD from Navisworks, it's going to work in here. The part I don't know is how you get Sharepoint. If you can connect Sharepoint to ACC, or would that have to be downloaded and then uploaded?
I don't know about SharePoint, but yeah, so you can aggregate different files using Navisworks coordination issue add into. So it's all built in. Perfect. So that answered that question. Except for the SharePoint, because SharePoint would be I don't want to say a competitor to Docs, but essentially it's a file storage solution, and you would probably need some type of connect. And there are API connections into other storage platforms. So by all means, you would just need to pay. I don't know what the cost is, so I'm pretty much just speaking out of left field right here. But I know you could do a connect to separate storage, and our team does do that. So if you want to have that built and have that conversation, by all means, we have a development team that can go through and do that and create that connection if that's something you're looking for custom curated, right? But natively right now, right, if you go to the integrations, it's not part of an integration. Like if I go to my home here, yeah, let's go here. I go to apps.
So much. So yeah, we understand, and Autodesk understands more like that there's 1,000 different platforms out there, and what you already may be using, you might be comfortable with. So I like, as Michael's scrolling through this, I'm seeing some Procore. I'm seeing some other logos that I recognize that would typically fall under a competitor. competitor. Blah, blah, blah. I can speak today. But these are all things that, like, yeah, we already know that you're using stuff. So let's make it easier for you to use what you're using and still tie into ACC. Like even the Milwaukee Tools logo I saw in there for your tool tracking. Where's this drill driver on the job site? You can do that with this.
That's a thing?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I don't see SharePoint in here. So it would probably have to go to custom integrations, and you can pay like any connect. I forget what it's called. And essentially allows it for connections into different APIs. Because essentially you're just connecting APIs.
Yeah.
Oh, here it is, two-way connect. But this is by Autodesk to SharePoint. There we go. So there is something built. Recommend reading that and watching that, but there is Sync Easy. Is the company, I guess, that published this.
Wow. Works with SharePoint and Teams. Huh. That's pretty cool.
Find Autodesk SharePoint integration from the integration library. Authenticate Autodesk account. Authenticate. Yeah, so it's just a pathway. Complete the configuration to set up the location of the account. Select the Autodesk tools to sync. Select the SharePoint site, parent folder. Submit your selections and acknowledge that you will change the parent path to break the sync. This integration works with Autodesk Layer. Yeah. I mean, we don't really use SharePoint. I'd like to test it, but there is a maximum 5 projects, known issues.
Well, free plans are limited. So it sounds like there's a premium one.
So the Sync Easy has a nice little corner on the market there.
Mm-hmm. Good for them.
Yeah.
Or something. So yeah.
Cool.
Answer your question fully, Chris, is that there is no integrated SharePoint integration. It's an add-on. So that costs extra. Going back to our movie channel thing. Oh, you want to watch the fight tonight? Yeah, that's going to cost extra.
Yeah, he has two-way. Are you asking if it's two-way? Yeah, I mean, it says two-way, and it has an indication of two-way. I mean, Review used to have the same thing, but Autodesk created the connection, and then they archived it. It's Autodesk, which was essentially the same thing where push and pull data from one solution to the next. So the API is there, right? Like that's been done, established. It's just people like this company here own that, right? And some folks, either Autodesk owns it, the connection, or like someone like SyncEasy owns a connection. And if they decide to end it, which I'm not trying to scare anybody, sorry, that's not what I was saying, but in that case, it did happen. So cool. Alrighty, full circle backwards. So we're back into here. Now these are two different views, and you have the ability to look at what's being clashed against the other models. Now you can go through and select something. So these are two elements that are being indicated for a clash. The great thing about this is it actually does allow you to, essentially if I deselect this, right, you don't have this highlighted overview of an actual model. I like the fact that it does indicate, it creates a bolder colorization of these, and you get to see the differences between them, right? So there is an issue. Ooh, sorry, I got a little, the scroll gets a little wild. Essentially, right, the wall here is indicating that it's bumping up against this other wall. And depending on what model is what, you do have that option to select and have that data and information for it. So there's a basic wall, another basic wall from the ARC model that's having an issue currently right now. But let's go and continue down the list. Now, what you can do is say it's not an issue. Again, if you wanted to go through a long list of that, or you can create some rule object exclusions if there's some specific objects exclusions that need to be indicated for those as well. So as of right here, it looks like there is a floor that's penetrating the wall as well. So again, another issue all the way up and down. So my assumption is probably that the shaft opening that someone had isn't correct, or the floor is going forward into that area as well. But let's go through and find something that is a little bit better to run a clash against, in that what we can do is just create some type of indicator. This is two walls. This is when you would have wanted to have that basic wall issue of exclusion for it. So here is a concrete floor that a wall is going into as well. So we'll actually indicate this one. This is something that I want someone to change. So we'll use Matt for this example, since you've all met Matt before. I'm going to want Matt to go through and actually update this change in the reflected design model. Now, what you can do is you can actually create an issue here. And I'll actually probably assign it to myself because I want to show you the live ability to see this within Revit. I'm not going to update it in Revit, but basically, again, coming full circle, you can go in here and you can say create an issue. There's a clash issue, and you want to be, this instance is, it's happening in one single model with links. And those links have views that were published as different models. But traditionally, what you could do is have the linked views. If you set up a proper coordination on what views need to be published from different models, we went the adverse effect. It was a lot easier just to have one model with a bunch of views having representation of these linked models. Again, so it's single source or it's a grouped source of information. Depends on how you want to coordinate. Because if I go with this method, I can only indicate to Matt and his team what they need to change. If they indicate, I'd have to print out a list. Like, let's say Matt said the structural element was wrong and he keynoted it here. That's a linked element from that view itself that I'm clashing against. I would have to send Michael a report. He wouldn't be able to bring that up in his Revit model, which I'm about to do for Matt. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
You sure?
Surprisingly,
sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So essentially, I can label this as, hey, Matt solved this issue. So now what I'm able to go through and do is say, this is Matt's issue. Thankfully, I'm coordinating with Matt, and this is his project. So this will update in Revit. So basically what I'm able to come down here and do, say there's a clash right here. You can assign it. I'm not going to assign it to Matt. I'm going to assign it to myself because I'm going to open up the model. Location, location details, due date, I don't know, tomorrow, start date, today. Well, actually, you know, in the typical world, it'd be like, I saw it today, due today. Attached, so if you wanted to choose any attachments and any references. So there are other issues, correspondences. Like if I created an issue, which is pretty cool, right? Because it's one platform, essentially transparency. Everyone can see everything that's happening. I could create a meeting in model coordination and then reference the meeting here, right? Or an email or something. So
me and Joe talked about this at 4:00 at our
yep.
daily meeting type of thing. That way you've got a backup and it's not just a, hey, go do this because I said so. It's because, hey, we coordinated this as an issue.
Yeah, and if someone says that they didn't do it or we didn't coordinate, or Jason, you never told me that. Well, I mean, there's accountability built into here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So everyone should take full ownership of things. Yeah, you see what I did there? Okay, so unpublished or not, meaning that they automatically publish into here. So you don't have to worry about unpublishing unless you're just like, hey, I made this, but I'm not ready for Michael and his team to go and do this. Yeah, you don't have to. Okay.
That's a difference from the DWG workflow with this, is where if you're making markups or comments in there, you have to manually publish them. So
I didn't know that. That's a thing.
I mean, there's not, well, I haven't tried the DWG coordination like you're doing here, but in the regular docs workflow, any markups or comments, you still have to publish those.
Yeah, because they have like an overlay feature, right? For DWGs. Yeah. Everyone always asks me about DWGs and stuff because people still work in it. I don't, and I'm always like, Jason will be able to talk about it, him and his team, because you guys use those every day, right?
All day long.
Yeah. Okay, so you can save this view if you wanted. So as you saw earlier, there was views over there. If you were like, hey, I want to save this view to come back to it, I don't know, you can. It's up to you. So you do public so that people can see it in other spaces if you wanted as well. I'll just do this as MCR example. Perfect, save view. And then now what I can go through and do is I can exit out. But if you ever wanted to go and like, hey, maybe I don't want to select this clash anymore, you can get out of the view here. And you can always go to your issues. Now, issues are seen as it's like a term. It's not end all be all because issues can be clashes. It can be a coordination item. Issue is just the title. And then you're having these filtered out into this area essentially. So I'll exit out of here. Now what I'll do is I'll open up Revit. I'll stop sharing my screen because I think I have some projects open that I can't just go through and show. But any questions from anyone that has joined in late to look at ACC? No? Okay.
No questions, but you mentioned issues isn't just an issue. So an issue, I would say, like if we're talking coordination or design issue, there's a clash, there's a problem.
Yeah.
So you're saying issues does not equal problem? Issues can be
I mean, so issues is just a term.
okay.
That can be late. It's a place where issues are happening.
Mm-hmm.
But what type of issue is it can be defined by the person placing the issue. So it's a definable item where it could be a clash, it could be a coordination. If I go back, I don't think that I know it's not as many as what Docs has because these don't go bilateral to here to Docs. So if I go through and create an issue, and here you have safety, I guess
You're not
you're
sharing
right.
anymore if you're trying to show stuff off.
Oh, thanks. I guess you're right. Like an issue is truly an issue, but you have like clash, commission, coordination. This one's design issue. So building code, client feedback, design. So I guess an issue is an issue, like something needs to be fixed.
An observation.
Maybe? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Like. Okay.
Yeah. And then you can create different templates if you wanted for issues, but that's just going into your settings. Okay. Let me check Revit.
And while that's loading, just want to say hi, everybody. I was looking at the attendee list, and I see some familiar faces and names, and I see some folks that I don't recognize. So welcome to MCR. If you're watching this on YouTube in the future, I hope you're having a wonderful day. But also thanks for tuning in. Here on MCR, you're going to find lots of different content. So while today we're in Autodesk Construction Cloud, normally we're more on the Bluebeam side of things, but we're all over the place in the AEC industry. So if there's this particular topic or software or anything that you want us to cover or dive into, let us know. I come from a civil background, so most of my stuff is going to be more civil in nature, where Michael's on the structural side. But here at ATG, we've got a whole team of folks from reality capture to structural to architectural to MEP. We've got friends. We can bring them on. We'll help you out. So our goal here is to engage the community of folks that are working in this stuff all day and hopefully give you a little nugget or tidbit that makes your life easier.
Oh, no.
Is Revit being...
No, it's all
Revity?
working. It's
Oh.
just like download new version. I haven't obviously downloaded the new version.
So, of the of the RVT or of Revit?
So issues, basically in order
Oh.
to address issues. So the great thing about Autodesk Construction Cloud is that it's live integration to the design teams, right? So if there was a clash or maybe even a design-based issue, and this could have been done, like I know redlining and those types of things, but if you're in the Autodesk ecosystem, you can almost essentially alleviate the need for PDF printouts because you can just check and verify via the model and then like address issues that you need to have modified via ACC. So there's a couple different workflows, right, for different folks and what they currently have enrolled in their platform. You could do the same thing. This is specifically against coordination, but you could have done the same exact thing for design-related issues between, let's just use structure for an example, an engineer and a structural designer, right?
So let's get caught up on questions real quick before you dive too far into Revit. So Danny asked, how far back can you restore a file? that's a cool thing about ACC. It'll go all the way back to the beginning. Every time you save, it's saving a version essentially. So you can go back to the first upload if you wanted to. Another question about security. Security is a big deal. How do you make sure that the right people have access to this? Well, it is all tied to that Autodesk license thing too. Not just anybody can click in here unless you have an Autodesk user ID. But there are different levels of security, and depending on your role in the project, a viewer versus an architect versus a BIM manager versus a contractor, you can set the security kind of like you can in Bluebeam for who can do what on a job site. And then Caitlin with the loaded question: Has there been any talks about the connection between ACC and Bluebeam Review from Nemetschek for better markups in ACC? So let's back up a little bit. A year ago at this point, probably, Nemetschek and Autodesk, who are traditionally arch enemies, maybe that's a little strong. They definitely do not like each other. Or Autodesk doesn't like them, but Nemetschek loves Autodesk, right? Because Autodesk is spitting out the PDFs that they need accordingly. But there was an agreement, kind of like what Autodesk and Esri have going on, where, hey, I know we do different things, but we should be kind of friends, right? So there was
between their cloud solutions.
Yeah,
there was an agreement.
Between the
only
cloud
their cloud
solutions, between Nemetschek, so Bluebeam Cloud and Bluebeam Studio and ACC. It's supposed to be a thing, and I was expecting an announcement at AU, but nothing yet. So maybe that's going to come at Bluebeam Unbound. Maybe that's coming down the pipe, but as of now, there is not a link between Nemetschek's offerings and Autodesk's offerings, even in that little thing that Michael showed up earlier with the plugins.
Yeah, not between the two companies themselves, correct?
Correct. But there could be something else because these APIs are opening up a little bit. Now, one more question before I leash it into Revit world, and I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to have you answer it, Michael.
Yeah.
This would have been a good question for the beginning. What's the difference between model coordination and model collaboration? Speaking of our game shows earlier.
But where are you getting model collaboration from? There is only model coordination.
Well, I think this goes to the ACC side of things, where you have the.
Well, like that's my question. You have model coordination, design collaboration.
Yeah,
is that what their question is?
Yeah,
these two. So. Oh, because you said model coordination and then model collaboration.
Okay.
And I was like confused. I'm like, wait, whoa.
Well, I can't just give you the easy questions all the time.
Yes. So what's the difference between these two? So design collaboration is meant for, it's meant to push and pull data. Essentially you enable it, but basically it's to push and pull packaging of files depending on how you want to collaborate in docs. So within design collaboration, this has to be enabled in order to use work sharing. There are swimming lanes within here, and I don't think we actually used the swimming lanes when we were doing this, Matt, or whatnot, but basically you have the ability to push and pull files via a packaging system. So within design collaboration, you have docs, which is the base that hosts the files. Then design collaboration helps you manage those files depending on the 3 different coordination types you're going to have. So typically when people use docs, they use what's called a live work sharing file, and they don't really go into here and they don't venture into here. They don't know what the swimming lanes are. They're just linking and then syncing and then, using it like Sharepoint or Dropbox or, a native file local storage. That's how they're using docs. They're enabling design collaboration because they're using work sharing, but they're not in here pushing and pulling packaging, right? That's what we call live work in place model sharing. Number 2 is where you actually have the ability to create what's called a shared file packaging system. So it's the shared file method. And basically what you're able to do within docs, when you publish a file, you're in design collaboration, a team will publish a file, right? They say publish latest, and then they'll see a package here. And then what they need to do is share that with everybody else. When they go through and share this file, it goes into a different file folder. Basically, you're determining as the team when you want to share a file with other teams versus via a sync method, right? So if I'm syncing and working every day within design collaboration using the shared method, you have to actually hit shared to all team members to receive a new file in the shared location. Then there's a consumed file method, and this basically allows you to, and then there's some rules behind it too. Like if you're afraid somebody's going to mess up, your whole folder structure, the consumed method is the super secured method because you're only giving people access to their own specific file. It's, again, there's a bunch of things to it, but the consumed method overarching is, hey, the team shared it now, which we just talked about the shared method, but my team's not ready to get an update yet and fix the model to it, and I don't want them to do that yet. Then they can come in here and say consume that file when you are ready to have that happen. So yes, the structure team shared the file, but I don't want the architectural team yet to see the update. They have full control as the architectural team to receive that shared when they decide to. This is a great way for different milestones. Your team's not ready to see an update. You're not chasing updates. There's just different ways to collaborate with files. Model coordination is specifically meant to coordinate between different views or models within ACC.
All right. Another question.
I guess I should probably go to an actual project that has them, so then I'm not just like speaking and everyone's like, well, what? We're all visual people here. So let me go into a project. But essentially within docs, right, people traditionally do what's called the live linking method because they don't know the full ability for this. So essentially you have these different files in here. Now, when you invite people into here and you're doing the live linking method, they need access to the full file folder system itself because they're linking from the architectural file folder to this architectural file. That's typically how people work when they're first getting into it, right? Hey, I have my file stored in ACC as a structural team, but I'm then going and linking to this architectural file here. That's called the live link method. And it's great, except you have live updates, right? If they publish a file, I then reload the latest, I'm going to see an update. It's not the best work method, but you see live updates. If you're comfortable with that, by all means, you can keep that method. That's the live work in place. Design collaboration's enabled, but you guys are never going in here and clicking. Then there's another one when you start enabling design collaboration and you actually do the shared method. So this is basically you as the owner of the hub gave the structural team access to this file and then all of these files down here. So these files can never be messed with, which are the main files themselves stored in here. So I can't go into the architectural file, delete it, mess with the main file, because when they're hitting publish and then they're sharing the file, it's actually being dumped a copy of it into this shared file folder, right? So when they're in here, design collaboration, I publish my latest. We'll say that I'm playing the structural position again. I published it, and now I'm ready to go through and share it. I can then go through and share this file folder over to that team, and that file folder will get updated, right? So if I go back into here, I hit shared, it updated it, not in here, because when I published it, it updated it down in my shared file folder, right? So down here, when I hit shared, it got a new version. This is what the architectural team is linking to is in this file folder. And all other teams, right? I'm linking to the architectural file folder in here. Everyone else's teams, these are all being published and shared. I have access to all of these. Okay. The other one is consumed, which is like, hey, structural team, I'm only giving you access to your file folder and where it lives. And then that's the consumed file folder. So you'll get everything that's consumed. So when you're in here in design collaboration, you're coming in here and consuming different publishes that different teams have done, right? So like here's one from the ARC team, and I want to go through and consume this specific one, right? So you have that ability to go through, and I don't want to be the ARC team. I guess this additional one is what's called bridge, which we're not going to get into because I don't want to confuse people.
That does get confusing.
Yes. So I'm the structural team, and I want to consume this new file folder. I can click into here and say consume, which means it's going to publish a new one to that file folder. Perfect. So now I can go over to here, and I can go into docs, and now I can go into my own file folder here, go into structure, consumed. And basically what I'm doing is linking to all of these file folders right here and where this lives.
So you're linking, you're not copying.
No, never. Yeah, I'm opening Revit and I'm linking to, you'll see these project files and locations, which honestly, if they're making you do consumed, you probably can't see any of these other file folders, right? Because they're only giving you permission to your file folder in ACC to see these, which are consumed, right? So it's a way to provide security, but also different milestones are published and then you as a team get to consume it. So it could be one or the other. They could be, hey, you can't see any file folders because they're only giving you set permissions to here. But it could be a different way also where you're like, I don't want to see every single update when you guys are updating your files. So what method do I see the most? Again, it just depends on who I'm talking to. If they've been using ACC, I'm starting to see majority of them use the shared or consumed file method. If you're new, typically, most of the time you're doing a live linking because you don't know what you don't know, which is design collaboration, because everyone walks into here. I shouldn't say clicks into here and they're like, what does all this mean? You know? Like there's a lot of things happening in here. What does the different symbols mean for when things were published? How do you consume? What does publishing even mean? Can you auto-publish? These types of things.
A new team has been discovered.
Yeah. Someone's creating teams.
Weird.
Anyways, going back into here. So we'll exit out of there, go back to our sandbox, and we'll go back to our model coordination. Where were we going before we went down this tangent? We were in Revit. So yeah. Anyways, going back into clashes. Yeah. So basically what I did earlier was I remember I labeled that clash. You can actually go through and click into where that clash is as well. So just having this specific element in this view, you now have that ability to go through and change these. Again, this is the architectural default view it brought up. And Matt did an excellent job of preparing his files in Revit. I didn't do any of this. Matt did all of this part, the Revit design environment. So there is a link in here that you're not seeing that essentially has that file referenced to it. But basically when I clicked into here, it indicated that this is the area where the issue is, and you can see issues in here. So if I wanted to, I can then, this is what's published into ACC, which isn't actually referencing the link in it, because if it did, then we'd have two structural models, right? Because the view is essentially a model in ACC. So if I was showing the structure and architecture in one link and publishing it, and then another one by itself, you would have two. Does that make sense? So if I went VB, went to my links, and I showed the structural model in here, and I published this view, but I also published another view with the structural model, we'd have two. Make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Surprisingly. Not surprisingly.
I was looking at you to make sure it made sense to you, because then maybe we'll have like an overarching, okay, if Jason gets it, we're all good. But basically coming back full circle is now I can see these issues that happen directly in ACC, actually in my design software. So again, coming full circle, like it can be for clash and coordination, but it can also be for just design related issues. And if you want to have your design team seeing updates within Revit itself. So again, this is a very powerful tool because it's live updates to the design team themselves. It's great when you're utilizing Revit. I understand people have different sub-disciplines that you need to coordinate against. So yeah, like an IFC file or something like that wouldn't be live update within the solution itself, but at least you're able to document this. That would be another way to print out a report and send those specific clashes, because a great example would be having issues with the fabrication team, right? and they don't use Revit, but we linked it in as an IFC so we can see that coordination, and you could create an itemized list for that. So just options. But if you're in Revit, the great thing about this is now I'm in here and I can go through and update when I need to. Now, if I went through and changed it and updated this, basically what I would go through and do is I would then say status. I wouldn't say closed because someone should be able to go through and review it, right? So if you switch it to in review, then someone else can go through and verify that as it's been updated as well. So again, the live ability to have some of these clashes directly within ACC is pretty stellar. Any questions?
So as we're winding this down, we've got not about 9 months left, but this is allowing folks who don't use Revit, who don't exactly know what's going on, like me. I can use ACC and go into a website and navigate the model without affecting where walls are or assets are or anything like that, and then have it tell me, hey, I've got a problem over here, and then that will take me to the problem where I can then review it on the website, and then once I mark it or flag it on the website, it's going to automatically show up in whomever's designing this within Revit to say, hey, there's an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I realize
100%.
the words that just came out of my mouth, but that still kind of blows my mind, right?
Yeah.
As we talked about earlier, the whole purpose of the whole drive behind this is to get away from the way we've always done it, right? We talked about how, traditionally when we're dealing with paper or 2D based workflows, the structural people are not going to see the plumbing plan until submittal day, right? And then they're laying it out on paper to pull off measurements, say, hey, is this pipe going to fit here, right? Now we're looking at this before construction plans are even we haven't cut sheets yet, right? The mindset shift, this isn't new, but I still feel, especially coming from the civil side, like you're showing me rocket scientists at this point. Crazy. So if this isn't part of your world, and I'm glad there's so many questions of people making it sound like it is part of their world, that's just a good thing. But if what you're seeing now is blowing your mind like it is mine, it's up to us to sort of, hey, we got to be doing this. It's not, we can't just get comfortable in our seat and say, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing. It's time to move on. Okay. Oh, look at that.
Yeah, I have an
Matt
updated
with the
one,
big
Matt,
share.
where I deleted. Is this different now with BIM 360?
The live work in place method versus the shared model method and consumed model.
I also did like a bridge example because folks want to understand what bridge is, and I actually did it from like Bluebeam. I think I just cut this out, Matt. Yeah, I did. So this is Matt's, but I just cut out that middle part. And I changed syncs. So yeah. Okay. So being aware of that coordination aspect here, this is built around that ability to do clash detection in Autodesk Construction Cloud platform, linking issues directly into the design software if you're using Revit for those clashes, of course. And this is just built in. So as long as you have BIM Collaborate or BIM Collaborate Pro, you have the ability to create what's called spaces and then initiate those spaces into team members for clash detection. Now, those users that are just maybe users of docs or don't want to run model coordination, you still have access to their models. So if you wanted to run it yourselves, you essentially could, but you just want to create some type of standard. And I highly recommend checking out Matt and I's AU class, which I think they're in the university now. So you could just check it out if you wanted to get some full in-depth information about step-by-step, because that's what we did at Autodesk University. Perfect.
Good deal. So that was a pretty fun little clash course, in ACC and doing some of that model coordination. But there are other tools out there, right? But this is setting up the bar pretty high because traditionally, like I said, you're laying paper, you got light tables. I mean, for those who remember what light tables are,
I do remember what light tables are.
There's
so
your
you're
first
good.
version. That's how far we've come, right? Caitlin, you want to go halvesies on that trademark? So yeah, there's some interesting times here.
And we'd be more than happy to do a step-by-step, right? We just need to, everyone needs to tell us what they want to see on here, right? MCR is all about you and the community. We're just coming up with random ideas. Well, I'm not. Jason is. And we're here to show you. So whatever we can come up with is what we show. But if you are interested in something more of a step-by-step guide, feel free to reach out to Jason or myself. You can reach out to us via LinkedIn, or you can reach out to us via our work emails here, which we've sent out before. Jason's is, I'll let Jason say his. Mine is just M and then Ichave at ATG USA. Shoot me an email. If Jason wants to give out his, he can.
I mean, it's the same basic format, first initial, last name, pretty easy. But next week, we're going to try to replicate some of this in Bluebeam. So today we did model coordination with ACC. Next week, we're going to do project coordination with Bluebeam. So it's going to be interesting. We're going to cover some things. We're going to go over quite a bit. But as always, if you've got questions, if you want to see the step-by-step and it looks like there's interest in that, we can move things around and get things ready.
Yeah, we'll probably do that a little bit later. But if you want a step-by-step, I'd have to see if Matt's available as well. Have him jump on and we can do a step-by-step, kind of what we did at AU, but less of an overview and more of a step-by-step. So cool.
Well, we got just a couple minutes left. What we got coming up here. So project coordination next week. We're going to do some version comparison. We're going to go through what's new in review because there's some things coming down the pipe, I believe. And then April 1st is going to be a special one. And April 1st is less than a month away. Holy cow.
That's April Fool's Day, right?
It is April Fool's Day. In the spirit of Unbound, in the spirit of AU, in the spirit of all these other conferences that are going on, we are going to do a conversation on how to level up your presentations. Not just public speaking, but also like what you're presenting to other folks. This is stuff that Michael and I do a lot outside of MCR, but also we've got some special folks that join us on here from time to time, as well as many talented folks here at ATG. We might bring in a couple special guests for a roundtable type of thing, but the goal was to help enable you. So if you have interest in speaking at Unbound or speaking anywhere, what can we do to help you level up your game? So that, like I said, it's not always around Bluebeam around here. So we'll go from there. How to create GIFs?
Easy.
Wish I live in a world of. That's how I speak my feelings. I wish I could just pull up GIFs when my wife's like, "How was your day?"
GIF.
There you go.
Yeah. You can easily make GIFs via Snagit if you're looking for like tech related stuff. That's the world I live in. I love publishing information like YouTube and creating GIFs. If you want to create shorts, if you want to not like actual wearable shorts, but shorts on YouTube, you know what I mean, Jason. But yeah, well, if we wanted to do some of that stuff, yeah, we definitely could. But without further ado, it looks like there's some interest in the step-by-step and setting up views. So we'll ring Matt in and find when a good time is for him as well to jump in on these. And we'll bring Mr. Matt Lynn on and do some more step-by-step like we did for AU. But thanks, everybody. And until next time, we'll see you all. Unless you want to, Jason always finishes. Jason, you finish it.
Your turn.
All right. And until next time, we'll see you all next week in talking about PDF Compare.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Hey there. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe and check out some of the other content on our channel.